Hey, good afternoon, everyone, on this Saturday rainy afternoon. What's up? What's happening? So, anyway, I was having a discussion with someone who motivated me or inspired me to basically talk about what we were talking about and things that are connected to it. There's a lot to uncover, so I will kind of go from one to the other, and you see the connection or the aha moments that we have nowadays. Like, to begin with, I was discussing, well, it was brought to my attention that kids are now, not all, but enough where it warrants media attention, where kids are going to school calling themselves furries, and they dress up like animals. And I laughed because it was funny. It's innocent, right? But why is the media saying leave the kids alone? Why is the media implying that it's okay for kids to show up in school dressed like animals? Is there any merit to this? I don't know. Do you know? But, there's all kind of crazy things going on in this country. It's not relegated to adults, but children too, by the sponsorship of adults, by the sponsorship of organizations run by adults. So, they didn't come out of nowhere. Anyway, so some of the other things that I thought about, like, how, okay, I mentioned before McGruff the crime dog. Okay, well, they put him to sleep. Crimes run rampant. Everything is just going like, you remember that stupid TV show with Jerry Springer? Oh, no, I'm sorry. I don't know if it was Jerry Springer or not, but you remember those TV shows where you just, like, Girls Gone Wild? That was stupid. It's like just trashy. All those Jerry Springer's shows, just trashy stuff. Ricky Lake, all of these things, just as far as old heads. But this stuff that used to come on, it's like, okay, all right, that was then. They don't have kind of stuff like that anymore. It's like normal, I guess, to be crazy, quote unquote. So as we were talking, it made me think of drug use, of how now we are being asked to, well, not being asked, but we are being asked. There are now treatment facilities, recovery mentalities, recovery institutions that are being built in the name of substance disorder. They're not using drugs anymore. They're just using. It's a substance disorder. Those are drugs. And they turn into monsters. People that do drugs turn into monsters. So you can't put kid gloves on that type of situation. You have to look at it for what it is. Now, I know that there's some of you people that are so immature that you would say, well, whose dogma are you going by? We're talking about people's lives. If you see that something is fucking someone's life up and you're trying to justify it being fucked up by making statements like, well, if they're going from 5 bags to 3 bags, then that's a great standard. No, it's a shitty standard. When you justify someone using 3 bags of heroin versus 5 bags of heroin, what does that say about the country that we live in? What does that say about the spiritual malnutrition country we live in? Something's wrong with that picture. And it's you who are making excuses for it. Now, again, I'm going to go back to, what was that movie? Back to the Future? Yeah, well, let's go back. Before the internet, before all of this. Y'all remember, I repeated this in the previous one, just say no to drugs. So now, just look at kids. I opened up about the flurries. Look at kids. Kids, they are younger and younger. They nowadays, I don't forget I don't remember the exact year, but at some point it was typically the man that worked and the woman stayed home with the kids. Then our culture became too expensive for one income. Then it became two people have to work to support the family. So if two people have to work to support the family, who's watching the kids after school? That means daycares had to arrive. There had to be more daycares. There had to be more after school programs. There had to be social centers. This is what happens when you take both parents out of the home for extended periods of time. That means their kids are more subject to be around strangers. And it evolved to that. You look at these young 14-year-olds who come out with shoot up a school, AR-15s. You think that came out of the sky? That came out of a cultural sentiment that these kids are on social media all day long and they're seeing these crazy things and they are manifesting that in their reality. Where do you think they're getting the gun from? They're not going to the stores to get them. They're getting them from their parents' homes. Then they go to school and kill people. Murder innocent lives lost behind a sickness, a continuum of this sickness. And if you look at it from a political point of view, it's despicable and disgusting because all you hear is the same old thing. Guns don't kill, people kill. Well, that means there's a psychological remedy, right? There's an emotional remedy. There's a spiritual remedy. There's a social remedy, right? Well, where is the remedy? Because you're not producing none. You make excuses for it in front of the media and you talk about it for a few days and then it's on to business as usual. This is how it works. This is the social political standard for how we deal with issues like these. They are not addressed. Band-aids on bullet wounds. Oh, we need to do this about the guns. We need to do that. We need to vote this. We need to vote that. All y'all are full of shit. You know what the problem is? You know how to address the problem. But there is money to be made. And wherever there's a dollar to be made, the government-sponsored agencies, so on and so forth, will produce what's necessary to make the money before they produce what's necessary for the spiritual, moral, psychological, emotional remedials. That is a fact. That is a fact. Now, you might say, well, Blake, what about this? What about that? Well, what about it? Well, what about it? Let's talk about it. It's just like when you look at a crime-ridden city or town. What undergirds the crime? Are they born criminals? No. Poor housing, lack of education, schooling. Those are things that undergird crime. So these situations, when they arise, if all we can do is put a dollar value on it, then it's not real value. And that's all you can put on it. You look at people that do drugs today. Look at people that do drugs today versus people that did it 40 years ago. 40 years ago, when you got off of drugs, you got off of drugs. Today, you get off of drugs to get on more drugs. Who sponsors it? Government-sponsored agencies. There is money in this. Doctors, psychologists, whomever else get together and they come up with these studies, and based on their data, their information, their understanding, they study the brain, they study all of this stuff, and then they say, hey, here's what we have. This will help people cope with the drugs by giving them more drugs. That's what this is. That is a fact. That is the reality. Is it getting better or is it getting worse? If you keep somebody on drugs, first of all, to say that someone can't, to say or imply or to implement institutions that say, suggest that you can't stop doing drugs on your own, so just reduce your usage from 5 to 3 and we'll be okay with that. That's the implication nowadays. What is it saying? Meet them where they're at. Okay, where are they? You don't have them in your car, do you? You don't have them in your home, do you? So where the hell are they? They're in the streets. How many of you get outside your comfort zone and go in the streets and tell them about what your program represents? Your program of treatment represents, hey, if you're doing this, let me get you something to help it make it better for you, so that way we can cut down on disease, which I support. Anything to cut down on disease, because it's also a health crisis. But if you use cutting down on disease, which you're using as a justification to say why we need to give them clean needles, why we need to give them safe spaces to do what they need to do, and that is it, then you are part of the problem. You are part of the problem if you limit the potential of someone to be free from drugs. Everyone should have that option, that opportunity presented before them. But when you're presented with the 3 versus the 5, and I'm going to start using that terminology, when you are presented with the reduction from 5 to 3, and you use that as your justification, and the government gives hundreds of billions of dollars a year or something close to that as remedials to drug agencies and other agencies to say, hey, here's what we can do. Here's what we're going to do. You're keeping people on something is what you're doing. Say what it is. Now, when I hear someone talk about the love they have for this, the love they have for that, I love this, oh, I meet people where they're at, and so on and so forth. Most of y'all are liars any damn way. Most of y'all are liars anyway. You repeat what you hear. You're not going nowhere near nobody with one tooth in his mouth. His shoes that are on his feet, on the sides of his feet. Most of you are liars. You go out of your way to be accepted into something with the understanding you get a badge for being a world savior. You are participating, you are assisting someone in your own everyday life. Look, let me put it this way. How many of you sit and talk with people that are on drugs? When I say on drugs, people that are actively using heroin, you know what I'm talking about. This is a drug too. Some foolish thinking person would use this. This is a drug too, Blake, so what about this? Get off your knees. Look, there are things that are necessary, and I'm not saying what's being done isn't necessary. Perspective. Everything should have a perspective. You just can't say, well, this is it and that's the way it's going to be because the other way didn't work. That's not true. That's not true. People stop doing drugs, worrying about their business, live productive lives. Just today, someone had talked about out of her own mouth how she no longer needed Suboxone in her life because she wanted to be free from that. Because she saw that she could be free. She saw that. She was taught that you can be free from that. You don't have to use that because it's now being government sponsored to say I'm on secondary medication, or I'm sorry, MAT, medically assisted treatment. Medically assisted treatment. That's soft way of saying you on some drugs. You on a different type of drug to help you. Again, not saying that it's wrong for all you immature earlobes that's out there that wear your emotions on your forehead and it can't be a critical listener when you hear something that's not what you're used to hearing, or you're so offended. And I know we live in that wet, weak culture where we're so offended by the air blowing the wrong way. So the reason why I asked about the going back to the person that's no longer on it, I don't need it, Blake. I don't. I know what this is. No one can tell me anything different, she said. I know what this is. I do not need it. I know too many people that make excuses for it. Now, can you live a productive life? Of course you can. Of course you can. Is it a perfect method? No. The only perfect method is not using nothing. When did it get to the point where, and I'm trying to, I know there are only certain people I can talk to, because only certain people are built to actually talk about something where they come to an understanding, because most of y'all are very immature. In my experience, just don't know how to talk about nothing. You get on social media and have fits. That's so immature. But anyway, what is it that's supposed to do for you? Does it help you get up in the morning? Okay. Does it help you sleep at night? Okay. What is it supposed to do? Medically assisted treatment. It's a money maker. That's a fact. It's a money maker, and it's going to continue to be. The government is sponsoring it based on doctors, pharmaceutical companies, and everything else. Because listen, 2014, maybe 16, whenever it was, you go to a place like Virginia, Pennsylvania, rural white towns, whole towns, damn near strung out on opioid, over-the-counter medications, opioids. How the hell did that happen? How the hell did that happen? Somebody tell me. Somebody teach me. How did it happen? How did that happen? Now, you got, I'm going to use a politically correct term. You got social encampments all over the country, with Phoenix being the biggest now, I think. All over the country. So they're not just homeless, they're on drugs. There's alcoholism, which is a drug. Mental illness. Triple threat. How did it happen? How did it happen? Did God do it? Did the devil do it? I know. The disease did it. That's the motto. The disease made me do it. Who did this to this country? You're going to tell me, you sharp thinking people, you get all the way to the 9th inning and you strike out? You get almost to the top of your game, or you get to the top of your game in your level of understanding, and all of a sudden, which way did he go? It's a good discussion. It's a healthy discussion if the right minds are on it. Yes, the right minds are on it. It's a very healthy discussion. And I know that based on my experience in dealing with people in harm reduction, majority of people are sheep anyway. Let's agree to that. Most people are just repeaters. Therefore, in that level of understanding, logic, most people are gonna hate on what I'm saying when it comes to what I'm saying, because they don't know how to talk about something because they're wrapped in it. They're wrapped up in it. I can't question this. That's the problem with people. The cancel culture mentality. All of y'all are one and the same. You want to cancel me out because I asked you something about that, what you represent, as if you're a major player in this. You're just a pawn. And it's being proven every time you argue something that you didn't create. It's worth asking the question. You know, when I was in Skid Row, I had this part about this woman. It always comes back to me. Why are you 3,000 miles away? Why do you care? Why are you out here? I said, well, I didn't tell you nothing about me. You don't know why. You don't know nothing about my background. You're assuming you do. And she caught herself and she said, you know, you're right. So after we talked for a little bit, she was like, wow, you really care. I'm like, of course I do. That's why I do what I do, because I do care. That's why I will continue to question things, because the government is not my fucking hero. And for many of you, it is just that. Their word is your bond, not mine. Not mine. I'm not down with cancel culture. I don't give a fuck what they say, how they say it, how many times they say it. If I reject it or if it's wrong, then I'll come to an understanding about why that is in the first place. I already know why, you know, but, and it don't matter what it is, you know, so it's a tough culture living, because everybody's, not everybody, but you know what I mean. There's a lot of like watered down, meek, victim mentality, poor me, easily taken advantage of. Easily taken advantage of. Do you know that pharmaceutical companies get sued all the time because they infect communities with drugs? Did you know that? So they pay our communities with money. I mean, what else is supposed to pay them off with? Pay them off with money. What's that money being used for? That money, what are your suggestions? What do you think that money should be used for? That's interesting. What should the monies be used for that's paying our communities that's been affected by their lies, by their distortions, by their government-sponsored nonsense? What is the money? What should the money be used for? I know who has an answer. I know just who has an answer. As a matter of fact, she answered that question. Won't mention her name, but she answered that question. So I bet you, how many of you even thought of that? Where does the money go when pharmaceutical companies are sued? Or when, of course, it's, when you see that stuff on TV, 553 million, you don't get that money. That money spread out over 10 years, 12 years, and you get this amount of months here, this amount here, this amount here. Who oversees that money that the pharmaceutical companies have hurt? The communities that have been hurt as a result of that. Who sees that money? What's done with that money in your community? You should know that. You should want to know. I'm sorry. You should want to know that. What's done with that money? You know, there's so many things that people could do that don't do because it's in there. See, with social media, it's like the gift and the curse. Some people that social media whores and don't have a life or found one, they become bigger than life, for lack of better words, as a result of social media. But once they leave out the house or off, they're on their phone, it's like nobody knows you except that small hallway basement that you're in once a week, twice a week, whatever. Outside of that, My point is how you can reduce yourself to nothing, yet appear to be so much bigger. That's your disease. Is that what that is? I'm not saying, I'm asking. Or will you take accountability for being something that you're not? Oh no, I've arrived. I'm spiritually fit. I'm not. If I wasn't, I wouldn't be having this discussion right now. If I was, I wouldn't be having this discussion, but I'm not. There's a lot being done right now. There's a lot being done. And it's bigger than me. It's bigger than you. It's bigger than us. But if we're on the same platform as far as some understanding and some actual respect goes, well, we can push the boundaries. See, this Me Too mentality, this victim mentality, when I say victim, I don't want anybody that's a political victim or social victim, historical victim. No, not what I mean. I'm just talking about, oh, I got something happened to me. Well, what happened? Well, the way they look. Oh, here's another thing. It was brought to my attention. Well, it wasn't brought to my attention. You see things. You ask things. The work environment is different from what it was 20 years ago. It's different. The people that work are like, everybody's like, chasing a bag. Nothing wrong with chasing a bag. Everybody wants a bag. But look at the man. Look at what it produces. You can't even. Now you gotta be careful what you talk about at work nowadays. You gotta be careful, boy, because you can get in trouble for being honest. You can get in trouble for being real and genuine. Now, there's so many things going on in this country. You got people that identify as letters. Like alphabet. Like letters. Remember Back to the Future? I said like 10 minutes ago, imagine looking into the future and seeing someone identify as a letter because I don't know why. I don't know why. I know that they do. What we call a man, we assume that's a man because that's what we know a man to be. How can I call you anything different if that's all I know? Or a woman, that's a woman because you came out of one, just like those who identify as he's and it's in letters, they came out of a woman too, as a result of semen. Back to the Future, that's the world we all come out of. So looking into the future, what are you thinking? Have we been desensitized? Have we been? You got men, that's MEN, that want to play in women's sports. That's not right. That's a man. But your government says it's okay. Your government. It's not okay. It's wrong. You ever look at your hand? You ever study your hand? It's different from a woman's, the bone structure. Your waist, your hips. No. Stop it. But anyway, people don't have discussions, but people do have discussions. And I like having discussions. Doesn't matter what it is. We can talk about racism. We can talk about sexism. Any ism. Democrats, Republicans. We can talk about the real birth of the KKK. which is the birth of this country. We can talk about anything you want to talk about. Anything. But a lot of people just aren't built like that. They just aren't. Some people only want to join in when they see the momentum's going their way. You know, they talk a lot about other countries, but look at our country. You think people aren't laughing at this country? Of course they are. But here we are wanting to portray ourselves like we're the place of freedom. 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 As soon as somebody questions something, oh, he hates us for our religion, he hates us for our culture, or she hates us for our belief system. If you want to know who's in control of everything, the one that you can't question, that's who's in control. And those are cowards in my book. But yeah, our culture's gone. It's going. Everybody's, I mean, you have your justifiable breakdowns, then you have your things that aren't justifiable. You know, every culture should have its own thing. Like with blacks, there's hip hop. That's where it came from. Which came from the streets. Which came from being came from being a social being in your community with some hardships. That's what hip hop is. Rap. Expressing yourself. It all comes from the blues. Anyway, yeah, just a little something I want to say. So I think that, you know, take a look around. The world is bigger than you. And there's a lot going on. People like to hide so much though. Like I can't, a phony person, once I detect that, I want nothing to do with you. Nothing. Because you'll stab me in my back. You'll stab him in the back, her in the back, them in the back. Yeah. Traitors to your own spiritual growth. Yeah, there's a lot of that. Which leads me to another point. Service. I did say that I go back and forth with a few different things earlier. Like, how many of you are of service to people? How many of you really are of service? Huh? You're asked to do this, or it's brought it to your attention, and you look for every excuse why you can't do it. You justify every possible thing and say, yeah, not today. Today becomes tomorrow. Tomorrow becomes next week. Next week becomes next month. You're cured. You arrive to a spot where it's not necessary for you to do this anymore. But if you were told that there were going to be news cameras there and they want to hear how you got to the point to where you're at, different story. But when I ask you something to participate in something, you got to scratch and think about it. Don't you see how we become so image driven? Image driven. Yes, everybody has one. You're born with an image. But a lot of times it's fake. A lot of times it's fake. Being of service is like the highest spiritual principle there is. And it's easy. Just do it. I'm not saying jump through hoops to do something that you're not ready to do or you're busy. But I'm saying, generally speaking, yes, do it. Highest spiritual principle there is to be of service to others where you can. It's all a perspective like everything else we do. Everything we do. So, just a little something I want to share with you folks. And I'm not done. There will be other things because I'm sure I'm going to get a lot of responses from this, from what I've said so far. Let me also add, I used to like really go hard on people who misrepresent what I said. And I started to look, when I took a look back, those are people that can't do what you do, so they're going to try to make you look bad. They don't want to see you shine, so they're going to make you look bad. And it's easy nowadays because they hide behind social media so they can get on there and type, and then you got 40 other people that look at it and say, ooh, Blake, you're a bad man. Well, guess what? Say hello to the bad guy. So I'm not going anywhere, and I'm going to continue this. This is real. Even the ones who can't stand me know this to be real. And I'm going to continue to be a hard-driving person about that which I see. Agree with it or disagree with it, I will be there front and center. This is what I do. And I appreciate everyone on their merit alone, on their merit. There are people that I don't agree with that I like. I don't agree with that or that, but you know what? So what? So what? But again, so many people are so petty and weak that you can't stand to see somebody get some attention because you want it for yourself, because you've earned your stripes in the eye of social media. That's your world. But anyway, yeah. You know how they say on like live and let live, the world needs to come together. I don't know who needs to hear this. You need to hear it. You need to own it. You need to step outside of your area code. Yeah. Take a look around. It ain't getting better, it's getting worse. And if you're not solidified in your stance, if you are not solidified in your stance, you're going to be one of those swept away like there was in that Mississippi blizzard. Just swept away. I don't have the answer to your dilemma. You have the answer. It's right in front of your face. But we can always ignore stuff. We can hide behind our whatever. But yeah, all right, this is Blake. I'm out. Thank you. I appreciate you. Let's keep doing this. Let's keep pushing the boundaries. Word.